Yeah, let's talk about the crash survivors' injuries now.
Yeah, CNN senior medical correspondent Elizabeth Cohen joins us now with licensed psychologist and PTSD expert Eric Fisher. Thank you both for being here with us. Elizabeth, I want to start with you. Just tell us what the situation is right now. What can you tell us about the injuries?
Well, as you said, there were, it's amazing there weren't more deaths. I mean, thank God there weren't, but there are quite a few injured people. So it's 182 injured people are at 11 area hospitals. And the injuries really run the gamut. I mean, everything from cuts and bruises to broken bones, spinal fractures, burns, and internal bleeding. So they're dealing with a whole array of injuries in this situation.
And some of the injuries we can't see. I mean, the cuts and bruises, those are easy to identify. But Dr. Fisher, tell us about some of the psychological issues, the PTSD.
Well, in any situation where you have something that's beyond the scope of what we experience, we have the ability to experience a post-traumatic stress disorder. That can be what we say immediate onset or delayed onset. You can have symptoms from 6 months to years later. What often sets those off are triggers. And triggers might be for people who've experienced plane crashes or other traumatic experiences, and they see these events on the news, could be difficult. One thing that's coming to mind for me is the correspondence between Sandy Hook Day at Yankee Stadium and this tragedy, because it's a tragedy that reaches the news. It's a tragedy that people are impacted. Even some parents could be reminded of their tragedy going back to major news events.
So the Newtown victims in some way could be re-traumatized by this?
Well, it's the fact that there's an event that went on that's, again, people are impacted. Many people are impacted, and all it takes is a trigger to prompt somebody who might have signs of post-traumatic stress. They might be having sleep problems. They might be having disturbing emotions or feelings, recurrent thoughts. They might be losing even an interest of life. That this kind of says, why bother? There's always going to be a tragedy. There's always going to be something, especially when you have something bad happen in correspondence with something good. People with post-traumatic stress are often waiting for the next shoe to drop. They're waiting for something bad to happen in their life. And it reinforces that belief that I have to be prepared. I have to be hypervigilant. I have to be ready for trauma.
I think the randomness of it that's part of the impact. I mean, no one thinks this is going to happen to them when they get on a plane.
Yeah, we've been hearing from the passenger, David Yoon. We've been showing his pictures this morning, and that's what he said. He said, I fly all the time. You never think this is going to happen. But what's incredible, what we've seen in these images, the passengers walking off the plane with their luggage in hand, looking calm, but we're wondering, are they just in shock, or are they actually calm? Has it sunk in for them yet? What do you think?
Yeah, there's a shock to it. I think there's a surreal sense of, our body, our mind has the ability to move into this ability to handle these traumatic situations in the moment. It's afterward that we have to be concerned about. And even people moving from, like just said, from victim to rescuer is a very empowering ability to have when you're coping with the potential post-traumatic stress. When you have a moderating factor to help you increase your sense of power over the event, that's very positive. And that's a very good thing as they're working through healing. You sometimes have first responders who have post-traumatic stress, from ER people, doctors, to military physicians, to nurses and things like that. They often are talking things through. So even your questions you were asking her about what she had experienced in one of the people before was a great question. The woman you had on in the last hour who had been through the crash and who had said, it took me 3 times to get on a plane, said, don't let me off this plane. That was a great therapy of in vivo desensitization and a successive approximations, as we call. So she did a great job working through her therapy and herself.
Confronting her fear head on.
And I think it speaks to the strength of the human spirit and the human mind, that in this situation, I mean, you're just landing in a plane like every time you've landed, and something bad happens, and people really do snap to it. They know what to do. They know how to help others. They know to keep calm. And yes, of course, they're feeling shock and trauma, but they also know how to handle it. I think we're stronger than we think we are sometimes.
And we've seen some of them actually, we've heard from the fire chief that some actually went into the water, jumped into the water right after the crash. Do we think there could have been chemical exposure or burns they were dealing with?
She was saying, the fire chief was saying that you can sort of make assumptions that they must have felt something that made them go to the water. We don't know what it is. Maybe they just felt the heat, and it's sort of a natural human reaction to want to go to water when you feel that kind of heat. Maybe they did smell something. It's unclear how much it was just sort of an automatic reaction versus something they thought through. We don't know. But, I'm sure we'll be talking to those people who went to the water, and we can ask them, why did you do it?
Elizabeth Cohen, Eric Fisher, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.